This project I'm using Caron Simply Soft. I took the tag off, but this one. So worsted weight 4-ply acrylic. And I'm going to be using a size H 5mm crochet hook. And this should be really easy, quick and easy. The slip knot. And then you want to start with a chain of 7. And then in the second stitch from the hook, we don't count the one that's on our hook, we're going to single crochet. And then we're going to do 1 single crochet in every stitch of the chain. And then we're going to chain 1 and turn. Now we're going to be working in the back loops only for the rest of the band part. So I'm going to go in the very, very first stitch and go right into the back loop of it and single crochet. And then I'm going to go in the next stitch, and you can see there's 2 loops. First, normally we go through both loops like that, but now we're just going to be going in this back one and single crochet, and we're going to do that in every stitch. 1 single crochet across and the back loops only of each stitch, just like this. And then we're going to chain 1 and turn, and we're just going to keep repeating that row, going in the very, very first stitch, single crocheting in the back loop. Then you just continue putting 1 single crochet in the back loops only in every stitch, chain 1 and turn, and repeat. Very first stitch, single crochet in the back loop, all the way across, back loops only, back and forth, just rows of single crochet. And while you're working in the back loop, that's what's going to put these little ridges on it. Now you want to do this for as long as till it fits around the child's head that you're doing. I'm making mine for about 6 to 12 months. 12 months probably. So you can follow me and do as many rows as I do. Or if you're going to make it for a bigger or a smaller child, you can look on the internet and find a head chart and just go by the circumference. Just measure it until the length is the circumference of the head. That would be the best way to do it, I think. So I'm just going to continue going. 1 single crochet in every stitch across, working in the back loops only, until I get the length that I want it to be. And I'll let you know how many rows I do here in just a second. Okay, I did a total of 39 rows. And you want to make sure when you measure, if you're measuring by a tape measure or by the child, you want to stretch it a little bit and then wrap it around. And then you'll know. And whatever number of rows you do, you want to make sure you end in an odd number. That way when you seam it together, the seam, you won't see the seam. It just needs to be on an odd row. So once you get your, I did 39, and once you get your number, however many you want, we're going to place it together and we're going to slip stitch it. So I'm going to go into this very first stitch and then the very first stitch on this other side and slip stitch. And then I'm going to go into the next stitch and then the next stitch on this piece and slip stitch. I'm going through both loops now. I'm not just doing the one loop anymore. Next stitch, slip stitch. All the way down. And then you can take it and tie it off. And if you want to go ahead and hide your tails now, you can. I'll do that in a second. But if you flip it and flip it inside out, and now the seam lines up like it's supposed to, right in the right spot, and you can't even really tell where the seam's at. Okay, for the flower, I'm going to start with a chain of 3, and then I'm going to slip stitch into the first one to form a ring. And then I'm going to chain 1. Now I'm going to be working through the center of the ring, and I want to do a total of 10 half double crochets. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can slide them over if you need to. 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now I want to slip stitch into the first half double crochet. Like that. You can pull your tail and it'll make that center circle close up. Now I'm going to be working in the same stitch that I just slip stitched into. I'm going to start with a chain of 3. I'm going to go back into the same stitch and do 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to chain 3 and go right back into the same one and slip stitch. Just like that. Now I'm going to slip stitch into the next stitch and then slip stitch into the one after that. Chain 3, go back into the same stitch and put 3 doubles. 1, 2, 3, chain 3, go back into the same stitch and slip stitch. Then I'm going to slip stitch into the next stitch and slip stitch in the one after that, and I'll start a petal again by chaining 3, going back into the same stitch and putting 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, chain 3, go back into the same stitch and slip stitch. Then I'll slip stitch into the next stitch, slip stitch into the one after that, chain 3, same stitch and do 3 double crochet. 1, 2, 3, chain 3, go back into the same stitch and slip stitch, and then I got one more petal to make. Slip stitch into the next stitch and slip stitch into the one after that, chain 3, back in the same stitch and do 3 double crochets. Chain 3, go back in the same stitch and slip stitch, and then you want to slip stitch into the next stitch and then slip stitch in your very first stitch with your very first petal, and then you can tie that off there's that. I'm going to set that to the side, and I'm going to make another layer. Basically, I'm going to be doing the same thing I just did, only I'm going to be doing it with triple crochets instead of doubles. So I'm going to start off with a chain of 3, go back in the same stitch, or the first stitch, and slip stitch to form a ring. And then you want to start with a chain 1, and then I'm going to go in and do 10 half double crochets through the center of the ring. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then you want to slip stitch into the first one, close that round off. Now we're going to be working in the same stitch. This time we're just going to be doing the same thing we just did, only we're going to be doing triple crochets. So I'm going to chain 4 this time, and then I'm going to triple. It's where you wrap twice and go back in the same stitch and triple crochet 3 times. There's 1, there's 2, and 3, and then we want to chain 4 again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Go back into the same stitch and slip stitch. So that's a petal. Now we're going to slip stitch in the next stitch and slip stitch into the next and chain 4 and go back in the same stitch and do 3 triple crochets. It's 3, chain 4, go back in the same stitch and slip stitch. Again, slip stitch into the next stitch, slip stitch into the next, and then we start with a chain 4, and now we're just going to repeat this process all the way around. Finish my last petal, and I'm just going to close this out by slip stitching into the next stitch and then slip stitching into the very first stitch with our very first petal, just like we did before. And then I'm going to cut off a long tail so I can sew with it like that. What's going to happen is it's going to be a double layer, kind of like that. So I'm going to get my yarn needle. I had to hit some of them tails. I got my one long tail left and I put it on my yarn needle. Now I'm just going to get it all straightened up here. Put my small one on top, kind of putting the petals opposite each other. And I'm just going to take this and sew it on. I go right through both of them. And now I'm just going to sew it on like this. I'm just sewing them together. Kind of going right to the top here. And then back through the center like that. You just want to sew it all the way around till it's nice and tight. And then when I have a button here that I'm going to put on it, and you don't have to do that, but I'm just going to sew it on right now too. I'm going to sew it right in the center. Yeah, sew it on nice and tight. Go back up again. Go back through that button again. Oh. I don't want it coming off. Okay, once you feel like it's all sewed on nice and tight how you want it, now we're just going to sew it on to this. I still got to hide a few tails. But I'm just going to use the same piece of yarn. Sew it right on. I'm going to make it come up through the top too a couple times. And basically just go around it and sewing it onto your band. It's nice and tight so it ain't going to come off. So I'm going to go ahead and do this all the way around, and then I'm going to hide some tails, I think, because I got a bunch of them still hanging. I hate doing that, hiding tails. It's the worst. So I'm going to go ahead and finish mine up. Okay, I'm finished. That's it. That's all there is to it. Turned out really cute. I hope that you enjoyed my tutorial, and I hope you were able to follow along okay. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. And don't forget to check me out on Facebook too, where you can post all your crochet items on there. I'll put a link to that below in the description box. And until next time, have a good day.